thank you very much. And yeah, thank you so much for having me for the program. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, so the work I'm presenting here really goes back to when I was based in Manchester and working a lot in this working in this CCPI, collaborative computational partnering tomographic imaging. Then I moved over to Denmark, and so I'm still very much involved with that. And since the program is called Rich and Nonlinear, and I mean, I haven't been doing so much nonlinear, but I've been doing some rich and maybe some non-rich tomography. So I thought I'd talk a bit about that. Let's see if this is working. So I brought two cases. I think those of you who went up to Edinburgh will have heard a little bit, at least about the first one, the sort of non-rich tomography case, sort of where we don't have so much information. So this was a kind of fun thing we participated in last year, this limited angle X-ray CT challenge organized by the Helsinki or the Finnish Inverse Problem Society. So I'll talk about what we did there and how the math and sort of practical data handling and so on came together. And then I'll talk a bit about a richer tomography case. So this is where we have, it really is a time of flight setup with neutral and arrival times, and with brag edges we're trying to image, and we develop a particular regularizer to compensate for the very noisy data we've got here. And both of these were done using the core imaging library, or CIL or SIL, call it what you like. There's a link up here. And also I wanted to take the opportunity to advertise and invite all of you to join next month, in a couple of weeks, I suppose. We will be running this joint training, and also we call it a Bring Your Own Data hackathon. So this will happen right across from here over at the CMS. In collaboration with the program here, we'll have some training on the first day, and then we'll have 2 days where we will work with you and try and explore maybe an idea you've got, and maybe you have some data set. I've talked to some of you on radar, and we have a few other ideas. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about what our plans are there. Okay, but first a little bit about what SIL is. So it's not the only one, but it's one package or one Python library for tomographic imaging and other inverse problems as well. And hopefully we can be expanding on the number of inverse problems we can handle. So, but specifically for CT, we have a number of data readers, we have some writers, we have various tools to help pre-process and manage the data. Then we are fortunate to be building on good work that other people have been doing, including Anna, who's here today, the secret package for very fast GPU accelerated forward back projection, or alternatively the Astra toolbox. We can handle that data of various dimensions, and we like to say we have this near math optimization syntax for specifying and solving optimization problems for the construction. I'll show you some examples of that, and then some visualization tools. And just to give an idea of what we can do, so you might have a data set. This is for one of the common micro CT instruments for size. And you have a data reader, and you read in the data, including various kinds of geometry or metadata information. So you get that into our data structure there, and then you can do some processing. So for example, the typical thing you need to do for X-rays, take the negative log, and maybe handle some outliers, so you can do that with the tools we've got. Then we have some utility tools to help you understand what kind of data you're looking at. So for example, here we could visualize and see what's the geometry. This is a cone, 3D, where's the detector, where's everything placed. This has been really helpful in the past to understand when we had things set up in the wrong way. Then you can do basic reconstruction methods like the back projection or the FPK method for cone beam data, and then we have some tools to visualize, for example, just show some slices through different animations. And so we put out 2 papers last year, 2 years ago now. This is the first part, kind of showing the core concepts. And the second part was more on, I think I'll move that slide. The second part is more on multi-channel, so energy resolved or time resolved problems. this is the main team. So I would say, so this is basically the team based in Powell. So Edo is running the group there, Gemma, Laura, and Vagelius. And Vagelius is now with Finland, and then with me, based over at HCU. And then we work with a bunch of people from around the UK and increasingly Europe as well. And here's an overview of what we've got, or at least I think this is 1 or 2 versions ago, but these are kind of the main modules, if you like. So we have some reading in the different data formats. And as we're looking to expand into new problems, obviously, like reading in, say, radar data or SAR data, this is an obvious area where we can be adding new tools. Then we have the core machinery for managing the data and extracting subsets and keeping track of all the geometry information. A bunch of the processors to do various corrections, mainly CT type corrections, but this is also something that could be added. Tools to visualize, or we also supply a number of demonstration data sets, again, mainly X-ray CT, but this could be expanded as well, and some simulation tools. And I'll be talking, I think, mainly today about this module here, which is more about the optimization algorithms and how you can compose different problems from different mathematical functionals and linear operators, and then we have a selection of different optimization algorithms. And we have the plugins for with the secret and others. So this kind of interface, if we have some third-party package, we can make use of that from so okay, so a couple of examples what we can do. So in addition to conventional X-ray CT, here we look at a dynamic CT setup. So we have a process that's evolving over time. The data set is down here from the gang in Finland. So this is, I think, some diffusion process taking place, and you see there's a gradual change of intensity here. And if you're able to acquire only 18 projections, so quite few projections, you see you get the expected streaks and lots of noise all over the place if you reconstruct each time frame individually. And with SIL, we were able to explore different methods, and we found out for this particular data set, the authors actually acquired a high quality data set before the dynamic process started and a high quality data set after. And so based on that, we could actually look at where are the edges, since most edges are not changing. So we looked at those edges and used the so-called directional total variation method to propagate those edges in from the beginning of time, if you like, and then from the end of the experiment. And you see that really helps compensate for all the noise, and you can see the little features here much more pronounced. And that's what described in this part 2 info there. We do other things than CT. So here's an example of another inverse problem. This is in painting. So you have some image, in this case a color image, so 3 channels that you're interested in, but unfortunately you're only given a corrupted image, which is full of noise and also missing parts. And then you can formulate that. We have linear operators to describe basically just removing parts of the image and adding some noise on top of that. And then you can run the same optimization-based algorithms in SIL. In this case, we use an L1 type data fidelity, because it's salt and pepper noise, and then this CGB regularized. So really, it's a toolbox where you can mix and match and try different tools and see what might work for your kind of setup. We are working with our sister network, the Synabi network. They have their main toolbox for PET and MR imaging is called SURF, and we are able to link up with SURF, and this allows us to do the same kind of reconstruction algorithms now for MR or PET type images, and do some more edge preserving reconstructions, or in this case, try to compensate for motion happening along the way, in this combined usage of SIL with SURF. Okay. So for the first part, the sort of non-rich, this is the participation or entry in this Helsinki tomography challenge. So this is the second challenge done by the Finnish Inverse Problem Society. The first one was the year before on image deep blurring. I didn't participate in that, but since it was limited angle, we thought let's try something there. And in the end, well, we knew from the year before that lots of machine learning kind of won basically everything. So we were not too surprised to see that they provided kind of lots of training data for that challenge. But here we wanted to see basically how far can we get without using machine learning, how far can we get with using more classic inverse problems or regularized reconstruction methods. So we managed to come in third, it turned out, and we were beaten by two teams doing a really good job using some machine learning approaches with really large amounts of synthetically generated and training data. So that was really impressive what they could do. But I just wanted to show you basically what the challenge was about and how we approached it. And so this was the setup. They gave us 4 data sets. So they scanned some small acrylic discs with some holes cut in, so always the same size, and then the holes would have different shapes and so on, different degrees of difficulty. They provided information on the X-ray setup, so basically all the geometry and all the complete data sets for these type of these 4 samples. And then you could kind of, subsample and generate limited angle sinograms from this data set and try out developing your reconstruction algorithms. And then they would have a set of test data that they would evaluate your algorithms on after submission. So those data sets were not released until after the challenge. And so the challenge was divided into 7 levels. Starting from, I thought we would have started at 360 degrees, so that's full data, but they decided we're going to be starting already at 90 degrees, so quite a hard problem already, and then increasingly difficult by removing more and more data, so down to just 30-degree data and only 61 projections. So obviously quite hard. And just to give you an idea of how the challenge was set up. So if you had this with this kind of ground truth image, if you went ahead and did, I think this is 40-degree data, and reconstructed that with the conventional filter back projection method and did a simple thresholding to segment the image, you would get something like this. Whereas in the end, ours didn't do quite as well as this one, but this was the winning algorithm that was able to basically recover more or less perfectly the image there. And the nice thing, or there were many things, it was a really well-designed challenge, I think, but they set up a particular quality metric for deciding which algorithm is doing better. And the idea here was to take the image and segment it. So, classify it into the foreground and the background. And then they had this metric, I didn't know about this one, the Matthews correlation coefficient, but apparently it's, counting up how many true positives and false positives and falsely classified pixels and so on. And then, computing a metric for this. So +1 is perfect and -1 is horrible and 0 is like random guessing. And also, there was a price, so they offer this, what they call this ultimate limited angle device that you could use, and they also invited the top teams to come up to Finland for their big Finnish inverse problems conference. And since we managed to come in third, we were actually invited to go there. And these are the organizers. You may know Samali and some of the other teams, Alexander and Tommy and so on. And so the winning team got the prizes, and at least we got to see, it was kind of fun to see the plastic discs. We only see the data, but actually they brought them so you could see them.
It's a cake section, the decorative one. Not,
I think so.
It's not operative,
is it not? No, I think that someone mentioned, they saw you actually buy it on Amazon for 50 quid or
less than that, because it's fake.
So we didn't get that one, but it was fun to participate anyway. Okay, so this was the challenge, and so we approached it by, looking at the data. This would be a full data reconstruction, and if we had only 50 degrees of that, and did normal filter back projection reconstruction, you would get this kind of image.
So it's a continuous segment.
Yes, instead of the full 360, it would be a continuous 50 degrees,
Right.
ranging from 90 degrees at the first level down to 30. Yes. Yes. And what you see is these classic limited angle artifacts where some of the edges are nicely reconstructed, along which you have rays, and then you have these other ones where these are completely impossible to resolve.
Just to clarify, Jakob, this is taking the data you don't have to be zero in doing FTK, right?
Yes.
Because
Well,
it's not the only thing you could do. Then.
true. I think in this case, even in MATLAB and so on, if you just take the 30-degree data and stick it into IRAD, and I guess it will assume it's zero everywhere else, but it will just back project.
Yeah, that's what you get. So I mean, you could inpaint it, for example. It won't work with 30 degrees, but you know what I mean. It will do a lot better than assuming it's
Yes,
zero.
this is the absolute baseline, doing the standard without thinking about if you should be inpainting or anything. This is just putting it into standard filter back prediction. It gives you this, which you then segment, basic OTSU segmentation, just classify into foreground and background pixels, and then we design this just like a difference plot to see what was going on. And you see the white bits are the correctly classified ones, and then you have the red and blue, which are the incorrectly classified ones. And we can compute the score of 43. So that was kind of the baseline for at least 50 degrees. And as I said, we wanted to try and use some conventional CT pre-processing and reconstruction techniques rather than go the machine learning way. And basically use as much as possible from the existing tools we have. We prepared 5 submissions. We could do one per team member, and they are all combining different, more or less the same pre-processing, then variations of the reconstruction algorithm, and essentially the same segmentation algorithm. And I actually will talk briefly about the segmentation algorithm because that's quite basic. This is where we didn't spend so much time. And what we found was if you take basic OTSU was not that good. So we experimented with a few variants, and you can have variants where you have multiple thresholds that are automatically determined. And this is basically what we did. And this helped us classify the pixels into basically a strong signal and a strong background, the black and yellowish bits, I suppose, and then more of the messy signal, messy background. And then we were hoping to do some more work on this, but in the end, we just bundled those together. So I think in the end, it's a bit like simple OTSU. So once again, I think there's some room for improvements on the segmentation side. So quite basic segmentation. In terms of pre-processing, we looked at the data, and if you do a histogram of your data, you can see you will have many parts of the sinogram should be 0 because that's where you have no ray, or your ray is going through just air. But actually the sinogram was slightly off. The peak here should be at 0. And so we went in and we rescaled the data and mapped it down to be peaking around 0. Small fix, but just to say there were a few non-kind of reconstruction algorithm things we did. The next thing we noticed was, and this is quite a common thing in CT, you will oftentimes see kind of white on the boundary and a darkening towards the center. And I mean, this can be caused by different things, but typically this is a beam hardening effect caused by your X-ray spectrum being, well, a spectrum, not a single energy, but your model is assuming it's a single energy. And what happens with the lower energy photons is they get absorbed more easily. And this is really a mismatch with the simple linear model that we're using. And this shows up as this kind of darkening. And what you can see is basically there are techniques to compensate for that, especially when you have a single material. You can do a basic reconstruction and determine the path lengths through the material. And then this is meant to be linear. You could see like the measured absorption and the path length, that should be a linear trend. but actually this was curving a little bit up. So the simple beam hardening correction is just to take that and squeeze that back onto the line, which we did. And this actually changes the reconstruction to be, instead of this line profile being this dip here and the holes here, they actually go very nicely to 0 and this constant value. And as a plus, we also were able to see this value, this particular mu value that the attenuation coefficient here actually corresponded nicely to the material acrylic at more or less the mean energy of this beam spectrum, meaning that it's actually quantitative. So we're actually using this correct attenuation coefficient for the particular material, and we'll actually use this. Did you calculate the mu? How did you interpret it? Yes, that kind of popped out of the correction here. The last thing we did, so oftentimes when you have a data set, a sinogram like this, and you do a reconstruction, you will oftentimes see basically that this is the width of the data, and then you will see some grayish corners outside this ring, this field of view. And this is no big deal. Normally you just cut out the part you're interested in. Another thing you can do is just pad your sinogram with some zeros to have it a bit wider, and that will actually remove these dark parts. So we did all of these things just to make the data a little bit more well calibrated. And these things were all done with SIL helper tools to. Yes, there will be a comment on that. And also we looked at this short geometry function to help us see what was going on. Okay, so turning to the reconstruction, we wanted to try and use all the prior information that was available. So we tried to think and look at this. Well, it looks like it's a single material, same material everywhere, and also it has sharp edges. So this is something we can try and use. Also, it was set to be, well, always disc shaped, and also it's 0 outside. And then we now determined it should have this constant value of the attenuation coefficient of acrylic, the inside. And also the last thing we noticed was exactly that there are certain edges that are already nicely reconstructed along the rays that we do have, and then there are edges that are completely unresolved, and those are obviously the more difficult ones to. So we wanted to try and do something about that. So these are the three things we looked at, and so we started by, since single material and sharp edges. Single material, sharp edges, that sounds very much like sort of variation, so edge preserving regularization. So we started by just doing that. So least square basic fidelity and this isotropic TV term over here. This is something we can solve quite easily with SIL. So we took the FDK for comparison, and then we did TV reconstruction, played with the parameter to get the best value, and this is basically what we got. And it's changing the score. It's going up a bit to 70 something, but it's not really solving the issues. It's not really 0. It's not really helping with these unresolved edges. And you see the difference is still sort of problems everywhere. In particular, connecting these gaps here. So the next thing we did was to try and exploit this fact that it's a circle. And we were actually able to just based on the information of these edges and these edges to fit a circle nicely to that. There's a technique this right here. And that actually worked really well all the way down to 30-degree data. So this was a way to extract, the outer edge of the object, and that worked really well. The way we could use it was to say, well, we're going to be solving the same problem as before, but we're going to put constraints on it, and we're going to put 0 bounds everywhere. And we're going to put an upper bound that depends on where you are in the image. So outside, so inside, we will put this V value, this acrylic value inside, because we know we have that material everywhere. And outside, we'll put zeros. So actually outside, you have lower and upper bounds of zeros. And this obviously means that all the values outside will be zeros, which is kind of what we wanted. And this had a dramatic effect. You see, obviously, all the way outside, it's all zeros. And you see, it's not quite perfectly determined, but it's pretty close. And you see the objects in here are also not more nicely resolved as this one before. And the last thing, we tried was to look at the data here. And again, we have, even with what we've done so far, we have unresolved edges, right? It's still these edges out here that are more nicely resolved than these ones that are not. And we know the kind of dominant angular orientation. So we wanted to do some edge preserving regularization exactly for these edges here. But we didn't have that in SIL. This is something that can be done, but we used a little bit of a crude trick. So we just rotated everything. We just rotated it to be aligned with one of the coordinate axes, because we do have tools to put a penalty on edges that are aligned with coordinate axis. So this is what we did. And this actually means that we can apply this is a single directional TV. So not doing anything to these edges, but encouraging edges here. And this did a little bit better. And you can see you now have these more pronounced edges here. And I can actually mention this is what we submitted. And when you segment it, it gets a little bit nicer. But we noticed after when we were preparing to go to Finland that we actually didn't make sure that the algorithm had converged. We hadn't solved the problem accurately enough, which is something I always tell my students, make sure to check convergence. And if we ran it a little bit further, we get much more pronounced edge preservation. Not perfect, but much clearer. And in terms of the score, obviously we rotate back then. In terms of score, the one we submitted for the 50 degree actually scored 93, but had we managed to detect this and optimize it properly, we would have gone up to 97 and see we determine these ones a bit better. I don't think this would have changed anything. The other teams did it really well, but we wanted to, as I said, try and quantify or capture the prior information and turn that into a reconstruction problem and solve it with SIL. And to show how this was done, with SIL, we have a number of different optimization algorithms in SIL. And the particular one we used here is, I think of it as like a Swiss Army knife. You can map many different optimization problems onto this form. So you have two terms. You have an F term and a G term, and inside the F you can have a linear operator. And in fact, you can also split this term. You can have a sum of multiple functionals with multiple operators inside here, and these can be non-smooth functions. So this is what we did. We rewrote the optimization problem we had to map it onto this form. So this is writing it out as a sum. So we have this least squares term here. We have the conventional TV, is this mixed 2,1 norm with the finite difference operator there. And then this special X directional TV, which is the one norm of the finite differences. And then this indicates a function here to capture these general lower bound and then this mass upper bound on the image. And we write that into SIL by combining. This is what we call a block function. So it takes all the functions. So this is kind of the part of the least squares where you've taken the A part away. You have the mixed 2,1 norm there, and you have this one norm over here. You take all the operators. Oh, I guess you take the indicator function, make that the G function, and then you take all your operators and combine those into this block operator we call it. And this is all there is to it. And still, we tried to make the syntax look a lot like that map in a way. So we have a block function, and we have classes representing these different types of functionals. So you combine them, you stack them in the same way. Do the same for the operators. We have this projection operator. This is the CT matrix, if you like, mapping from an image to some sinogram under the hood using either Astra or Tigra. And then you have the gradient operator and this minor difference operator in this particular direction. You have this indicator box functional with this pixel-wise lower and upper bounds. And that's it. And this is how you represent that problem. And then you start the optimization algorithm with the 0 image in this case, specify your F, E's, and K's. This call would look the same from many other optimization problems. They are all represented by F, E, and K. Run some iterations and get the solution out. And then I wanted to show a few more points on the difficulties of the problem. So there were some problems. So for example, one here at 60 degrees. So this is, I think, level 4 or 5, something like that. And 60 degrees is not a wide range, but it just happens that this is quite easy because none of the edges are along kind of the dominant direction. So none of them are or very orthogonal too. So we could reconstruct that quite nicely. Whereas if you have a case where some of the edges are more orthogonal to the dominant direction, you don't have so much information on those, and those are the ones that are most difficult to pick up. So there are some exceptions, so somehow it works out some of the edges, but this was the general trend. And obviously, I think the organizers tried to be quite make it hard at the last level, so they rotated the images in a difficult way. And at this point, our method is really not able to. I mean, you get the outer part fine, but the method is not really able to pick up those particular difficult edges for this particular organization. In terms of the results, so the organizers put together like an overview of how all the different submitted algorithms performed, starting from level 1, 90 degrees. And this is the target, the ground truth, and then you have the winning and the second place, and then our third place, just to compare how the different algorithms did. And then increasing the difficulty, you see you get fewer angles and also more complicated shapes. And most of the algorithms are coping quite well at this level. Then it gets increasingly difficult, more holes and more complicated shapes. And as you go to 60 degrees, also with some starting to have more non-convex voids in here. And this is starting to cause some issues for some of the algorithms. And then you keep going to 50. And for our algorithm, this is more or less the best we could do, because after 50 and 40 degrees, it started breaking down a little bit. And this is doing all right, but at 30 degrees, I think all of the algorithms more or less had really a hard time, some more than others. And so this was the challenge basically. Okay, so if we had more time, we would have tried more on the segmentation side, tried to do a bit more for actually going from the reconstruction to the binary image. Also, obviously, make sure we run the optimization algorithm to convergence to make sure the quality is the best it can be. Another idea we had was for most of the images that they had provided from the beginning, we could see that there were no holes on the edge. So we thought we could maybe make like a little annulus of just constant value on here and enforce that in our constraint. We could see this could have helped a little bit out here. Actually, if we had forced that to be the upper value, we didn't submit that in the end. And also we played a lot with different regularizers to combine more regularizers to express more information. So for example, we really had a binary image, so we wanted to say force it to be either 0 or 1. Unfortunately, that's not convex, so it falls a little bit outside the framework of what we do at the moment. But we could try and force it to push some of them to be 0, to be sparser. And some of the algorithms we submitted did have this in, but didn't perform quite as well. And actually, all the data is released, so it was kind of done in an open science spirit. So all of the data and all of the algorithms that people submitted were required to be released. So you can all go and find that on GitHub, and if you're interested, it's a nice collection of data sets. Any questions at this point?
There was one online, but Heather was just saying that the critic value was the one we got from this database. I think it's just a comment.
Okay. I think we should check with Gemma from the team who did this particular part of work exactly how.
And can I just ask you, you mentioned this about it being binary. Did any of the contestants try discrete tomography approach? I
didn't. The other ones I looked at, they all used machine learning. And in those cases, they didn't distinguish between reconstruction and segmented. They went straight for the binary image. Right,
but that's also true of discrete tomography and, for example, using level set method. Right? And this is kind of approaches where you know it's binary, it's the boundary.
Yeah.
Like the group in Amsterdam, just and so on. They have algorithms for this discrete tomography, even though it's not complex.
We thought about this Dart algorithm. We thought about using that, but didn't explore it. Yeah. But once again, the data sets are there, and I think it's actually a fun thing to try out other ideas and see if it works.
I mean, I think in that respect, it's artificial. I mean, it's not so much use for actually finding objects making sense.
No, I guess. I mean, this is. No, I.
So it may not be worth implementing it for that because.
Yeah.
On that sense, I've seen some people from MPI in the UK starting to look at
in that case, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like a metal component, single material, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that is fine.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
Martin Turner just sent in the link for the challenge website.
Okay, good. Thank you. Right. Yes, let's move on. I think the time is already. The other case I wanted to talk about is the case of neutron time of flight tomography. So at the ISIS facility here in the UK, they have a beamline for doing projection imaging and tomography to some extent. And you have it's a pulsed source, so you have the neutrons coming out here into the beamline, and then you're detecting the pulses that they come in, and they have different energy, and then according to the energy, they arrive at different times, and you can distinguish their energy this way. And the detector is 512 squared, and you can distinguish into about 3,000 different energy channels. So this is also a case where you have, depending on how you set up the experiment, you have a spectrum of different energies of the neutrons. And I mean, this is really based on diffractions. The neutrons are diffracted, and I still think of it as attenuation, but I think that doesn't really matter. matter for, at least for the way we set it up here, you have for different materials, you have these attenuation or these Bragg edge diffraction curves. They are really, so it's kind of like an X-ray attenuation, but just for neutron. And just like for X-rays, where we have K edges where the attenuation changes dramatically, we have these known positions for different materials that you can look up, kind of like fingerprint for each material, like spectroscopy. This line, you can determine that it's this material or this combination of.
Just to point out, this when switches talked here 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
These in great detail. So
Excellent.
I recommend anyone who missed it to look back in the
So we managed to get a beam time at the facility, and we put together we have various test objects, and the most successful one was actually the most improvised one, which was kind of interesting. So we put together at the end of the day this aluminum foil cylinders with various high purity metals powders in there to get nice clean phantom objects. So we had empty one, and then we had nickel, zinc, copper, aluminum, and iron powders in there, and acquired some data. And to X-ray, it's quite a long exposure time, 15 minutes per projection, to acquire all these energy channels. And even when you do that, it's very, oh, I think I have that on a later slide. It's very noisy. It's very few counts, so you have to do something to handle that. With SIL, we explored a number of different methods, and 2 of the methods we explored. One is called one is essentially a TV, where you look at each energy channel, and then you just do TV on each channel separately. This is quite straightforward and easy to do, but the disadvantage is that there's no real use of any correlations across the channels. We know the attenuation is similar in neighboring channels, so we're not really using anything like that. One generalized form is called the total nuclear variation, where we're minimizing this regularizer here, where we, instead of just the 2 norm, we now have this nuclear norm. So that's the sum of the singular values of this final difference in here. The nice thing about that is it's encouraging gradients, gradient vectors of neighboring energy channels to be aligned. So it's kind of encouraging the same edges to appear. If you look at different channels, we're encouraging the same edges to occur in the different energy channels. The other thing we did was we used what's called CGV, so another generalized form of total variation. So the classic total variation tries to do piecewise constant images separated by some jumps, and the CGV tries to do piecewise smooth plus jumps. So if you have some image here, it's trying to be denoised. TV will try to make that piecewise constant, which in this case, since it's gradually changing, will make it into these patches or these staircasing artifacts, whereas the TGV will do a better job of allowing transitions and still also allowing sharp edges and jumps there. So our idea was to well, we looked at the data and said, so in spatial dimension, this is if you use all the data and just ignore the energy dimension and sum everything up, well, it's single material inside each of the cylinders. So let's try and do some TV, so edge preserving and noise removing on the space dimension, and then looking at the energy dimension. This is not really TV like, right? This is more gradually changing. So we tried to do just TGV on the energy dimension instead. So it's a combined regularizer, or really a sum of 2 regularizers, the TV of the space, and in combination with the TGV along the energy dimension. And this again can be set up in SIL, so you can write out the different regularizers, the TV and TGV and data fidelity. I think there's an A missing in here, but the details are in the paper, and you can again cast it to this form and set up all the different building blocks, different this block operator with the different operators you need, and this block function again, all the different parts, feed it into a SIL. Again, you set up the operators, you combine them, and you have this constraint, that's the G function, and all the different F functions, you combine those into this combined block function here, and then at the end, you run the algorithm with these inputs. And doing that, we were able to get something like this. So we would pick out from all these thousands of energy channels, we pick out single energy channels and just do filter back projection. We get, as expected, since it's very noisy, we get very noisy reconstructions where you can't really see these different disks that are in there. TNV implemented in SIL did a lot better, but actually the TDV method, where we combine the spatial TV and TDV with the energy connection, did even better. So we preserve the edges very nicely, we can distinguish and even detect this aluminium. You can see that that's aluminium has very low contrast for across all the energy channels, we see a signal. If you look at cross sections or line profiles, filter back projection is noisy. You can't see really the cylinders, but both TME and especially TDV captures all these, and especially it also makes it possible to see this faint aluminium cylinder here. And even more interestingly, to me at least, if you look at this in energy dimension, so take a particular pixel and look across all the energy channels, we know what that signal should look like, right? Because it's a single material, we should see the pronounced bracket. This FBT, we see nothing. Here we look at an iron pixel and a nickel pixel, but for TNV and TBT, we actually managed to capture that correct behavior of gradually changing plus these jumps. And in the paper, we extracted the precise location and were able to quantify how much of an improvement in terms of determining those locations and sizes and so on compared to TNV and TBT. This really allowed to kind of for the first time to do like three-dimensional bragg edge imaging. This is not something they really attempted before because the data is basically too noisy for this. But for this, it actually was feasible. Yes, any questions for this?
Just check this in.
Still full. No, but for this paper we did just the 2D slides.
And you can do the regularization. I mean, I suppose that's the point, isn't it? That this is parallel beams, so you can do it slice by slice. But if you do that, you can't enforce a regularization.
With the third dimension, it gets a lot bigger and a lot more expensive to solve, but you have the additional regularity to enforce by that third dimension as well. It's I don't have any numbers for that, but it's the same or worse. I mean, it's they are quite demanding in terms of memory and computation time for sure. Which would be a reason to maybe keep it 2D, which is more manageable. You can parallelize that obviously.
Or maybe do the 2D one and then run a small number of iterations with the 3D term built in to see the temperature.
Yeah.
Martin just sent a chat message that said calls for beam time on this new from beam. Hopefully, if anyone wants to have a go. Bring your own sample, but you do need to look there for a bit while it cools down because it will end up being radioactive, as we found.
They have a cupboard for that, right?
Yeah, they put it in the cupboard and come back up easily.
Can I add something?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Jakob. Thank you very much for your talk. Yeah, if someone is interested in applying beam time for IMAT, please be in touch. I'm happy to help you. even if I'm a diamond now, I'm still with ISIS.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that was Genoveva, who was the beeline scientist, very kindly helping us and being very patient with us in all the experiments we wanted to do. Thank you. Was there another one?
Rosemary Bennett asked if there's a link to the scoring method using a challenge for the segment image.
I mean, I would.
Actually, if you just Google it, there's loads on there. Matthews.
I think it's all provided from, like, if you Google Finnish Inverse Problem Society.
Yeah. Well, Martin put a link
did he
to
put
that
the
in
link in
chat,
there?
so,
Yeah. If you just go to that link, all the information, there's a PDF which collects all the information from the challenge. Also, this I assume there's a link to where that came from.
If you, I just Googled it, and it's I mean, it's very widely used. It's maybe the rationale for using that for this challenge might be the more interesting. And Rosemary also says thanks. Great presentation. Hey, we're not finished yet.
Thank you.
We've got
We have the most important part still. So this is the advertisement, I suppose. We have this event that we're organizing in collaboration with the program, due to happen. This is broken now. Anyway, the link is there about the event. So this is an introduction for anyone who might be interested in trying out this library for various problems. Could be deep learning problems or CT or hopefully other problems. So we will start with like an afternoon and morning session, and first and second day for the training. So we will run our training there. And this is from a training we ran a couple of years ago. Chester. But the other thing we will run is this hackathon, which will start at noon on the second day. And this is something we haven't done at this scale, at least before. But we're hoping that we can get people to try out SIL, not just for our carefully prepared training material, but actually bring some of their own data and try it out, see if they can get it loaded in, if they can try out some of the tools we provide, if they can get some of the reconstruction algorithms up and running. So this can take different forms, even just reading in data is always a barrier to just getting the data read in and set up in the right way. Then one can explore many different things and try different reconstruction algorithms on the data. And so we're hoping that all participants will be able to leave, with working code and be able to explore a bit more. So this would be the idea. On top of that, we are hoping to, as kind of a community effort, to combine for anyone who's willing to really, have some open data or release some data sets, make a collection of data sets and demonstration code to showcase basically what you can do with these methods. So I've talked to some of you already, and I'm very excited about the prospects of doing something on radar. I think that would be good fun. We have people coming who are doing spectral CT. We have people coming who are looking at limited angle. We might have some interest in PyTorch, linking up with some other libraries. And I actually have a list of things that are being proposed at the moment. So we have some from the PET NMR side coming also to try and do something there. We have there's a few other nice toolboxes around. So there's a toolbox called ELSA, based at the Technical University of Munich. So we have someone coming to see if we can link up with them. We have people coming from the Helsinki team to try and link up with their tomography toolbox and some of their nice data sets. I believe Anna will be joining. We're hoping to strengthen the connection with TIPRA and a few other ones. And if you have any ideas or you're the tiniest bit tempted, come talk to me. I think we have plenty of space, and we're hoping to,
as well as radar integrating over ellipsoids. Hopefully, we might have somebody from proton therapy integrating over codes. So
Excellent. So yes, so I'm around the rest of this week. Happy to have a chat. And other than that, I mean, please consider registering for the event. I think it'll be good fun. And hopefully we can do some cool things together. And I think maybe that is it, more or less. Just, you know, these were the papers that we I talked about, the core imaging library, the software papers are at the top there, and then a couple of the applications, the neutron one, we did a similar thing for X-ray CT. I see I didn't update that for the published one. It's in the Nature Scientific Reports, and the motion compensation one. Bill and I wrote a book also with Professor Hansen at DTU and several other people contributing on X-ray reconstruction algorithms.
Everything you wanted to know, what you were saying to us. Well, anytime tomorrow.
Really, yeah. It's there, so the shameless self-promotion there. And we also have started this SIL Discord community. So this is not just for the young generation, but it's you know, a way to get in touch with the developers and also other users. We're seeing increasingly that people are helping each other out with questions they have on usage of SIL.
So Martin's put a link in the chat.
Yes, so that's also here. Great. So this is the summary, I guess. So we have this non-rich, if you like, tomography case of poor, I don't know, limited angle CT. You have a richer one with hyperspectral neutron CT, and then the main links for the library.
What does she say scale? I don't want to call the standard version 4.
I opted for non-rich.
Yeah, non-rich is good, but I mean, I suppose it means scale rather than functional tensor.
Yeah. In this case, I figured since it was not also incomplete data, it was especially non-rich. And then the link for the hackathon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. We also had a very particular with my audience. Absolutely. Questions. Are there any questions from the physical person? Well, we don't need to stop on time. There is no on time, but also feel free to leave it. Thank you. I haven't put the slides on the organizer when you put the abstract.
Okay.
There's a space to upload the slides.
Okay.
If you want to do that, that would be great, because then we'll find the links.
Right. Okay.
And I think Zoom preserves the chat as a text file.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Maybe, like, if there's a question answer the question that Rosemary asked about, we need to do the evaluation method.
Yeah.
I was just going to make a link to Sean's talks on the various talks you've seen on microanalysis, that in the SDK with limited angles, we saw streaks in the expected direction, right? From setting the unknown data to 0. So that's how that works in fact as this out. It's basically clear to me that when you're tweaking your algorithms and so on, you really know what to aim for, but potentially in real life you might not know what to aim for. So, are you saying inverse try? I just noticed that we wanted this to be round.
Yeah.
And then we adjusted. But maybe I don't know if you recall the black hole imaging.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Did they know they were aiming for a donut shape? They got a donut shape.
Yeah. I suppose. I mean, I guess that's in a way, the luxury of participating in a challenge where it's so carefully defined and
But it's
But
not
on the other hand,
artificial, is it? Because there's lots
mean,
of cases where you
I
did
think
those problems.
I wanted to try and make the point that in both of those cases and in other cases as well, we're trying to, in different ways, make use of what prior information we've got. Be it the pre-scan, the post-scan thing for the dynamic thing, be it the disc shape, or be it the piecewise change or the gradually changing. So all of these things are maybe some of those are visual, we expect them to look like them. But there are different ways of quantifying and encapsulating that into the reconstruction algorithm.
I'd say that's actually good practice, and I'm joking about it being cheating in a way. Because, I mean, you have to be careful you don't cheat and assume something that doesn't appear there, and that's done, right? But suppose you're doing a non-destructive evaluation. So you've got a factory making chips, and the chips are sometimes defective in some way, but not because they have some unexpected ingredients in them. They're made out of silicon and plastic and gold and so on. So you have a very strong fire of what they are. So you know that the values, you know the lower bounds, and you know some of the edges and things like that. So it's not unusual to know things like that in that kind of manufactured object sense, because you know what you put in it. But if you run a lab where people can bring anything in that they dug up, you know, like some kind of archaeological artifact or embryology, you know, and you really have no idea what it is, except for what you can see externally, then it would be cheating. So it comes down to to do this sort of prior information stuff on something that's severely opposed. You have to carefully ask the standard question: what do you already know, and also what is it trying to find? So it's kind of an example of that. But you have to ask this carefully and as specific to the problem you're solving.
And I'm wondering a little bit about machine learning. So I'm hoping that they were continuously checking the metric, then going back to this pause. So by going in the solution, you will then eventually get the right answer just by
That would be cheap, but
looking at the metric.
it would be cheap if you incorporate everything, ground truth, something like that, then cheap. So presumably training set work in a similar way.
Did you know that what you're supposed to aim for the challenge? The machine
The metric we knew, but what do you mean?
You didn't know what the target images were.
No.
Oh, I got the impression that you wanted circles, but you just guessed it.
So the information that was provided was these 4 examples, and then they had a bigger collection of unrevealed data sets that they then tested on after everyone submitted. They ran, you know, it's taken them a while to get everything set up and get the code working and so on, but they got that all. What they did, they put a lot of work into generating test data of their own. So they found, well, similar in spirit to what we did, just using different tools. It's always going to be a disk with different holes. So they simulated millions and millions, not just they set up so different shapes of holes.
They said it would be samples with this.
So that was given. But it was said that it would be, the complexity would increase. So, but not quite. What does that mean? Like what complexity?
Did
We
they
didn't.
say the holes would be interior?
No, no.
You deduced that, right, from the.
So we submitted 5, and they were increasingly ambitious. So we had like one that was a bit safer in case we made assumptions that weren't correct, and then we had this was one of the more aggressive ones. We tried to cover the range there.
Did all 5 of your submissions, or are they all done in that?
They are so this one is the second one, and there was 5. You can just replace the number here. Each repository contains.
Yeah, you showed a whole bunch of images.
Oh yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Were all 5 there?
Yes. So I think originally something like 27 teams registered, and then only 9 actually submitted something. And so ours were these 5 down here. The last 5, 24 A to E. I think that the E was a basic TV1, and the A's and B's were like combination, like different kinds of directional TV variants, and one was like with some sparsity, and I forgot what the 4th one was. The B one was the only one with this rotation done inside it. The other ones were operating on.
Actually, if you just click on the chat, what Martin just posted, in the was the first page of the portal was just
Did anybody try it again on some combination approach? Like, I think you mentioned it, like different for the 2 values.
I think I'm only sharing the presentation. I do have the chat, but
Oh, it's not going to share that. Well,
it's
you wouldn't give it. It's the link.
I mean, I checked 4 or 5 of the other submissions. They were all machine learning based. I didn't see any other kind of model based ones, so I didn't see it, but
okay, and there's an answer.
sounds like all what the different ones were. You'd have to check. I can't remember exactly what they
It's just describing.
It's
just describing the optic, right? On the screen.
Yeah, C was
A was
L1
TV.
data fit, L1 plus TV regularizer. D was an anisotropic TV variant, and E did not use this circle fitting thing. Because we didn't know if that would work, right? So it might destroy it completely. And so we took that out of some of them. But yeah, good fun actually to participate. So in some way I would recommend it, in some other ways it delayed a lot of other things. But
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I think we'll bring the forward persons.